Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups on the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We can also be found on Facebook if you search for Seattle Law of One in Facebook. We do meet on Zoom twice a week. We meet on Tuesdays from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, as well as Saturdays from 8 to 10 in the morning Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Zoom meetings or anything, or to join our Facebook group. Anyone who's interested and is available, welcome to do that. It's probably the best way to get announcements for future Q&As like this one. For folks who do not do Facebook, we do actually have an email address, seattlelaw1@gmail.com, and we do send out weekly email blasts to notify folks of upcoming topics for our weekly sessions, as well as upcoming Q&As like this one. And we do have a YouTube channel. If you look for Seattle Law of One and subscribe to it, you can get recordings of this session as well as previous sessions with Austin, Trish, and Gary and the rest of the L&L gang. And today we are blessed once again to have Mr. Jim McCarty joining us for some informal conversation and questions and answers about the Law of One and how to live it. How are you doing today, Jim?
Doing well. Enjoying another great day here in my spiritual home.
Rainy last night, huh?
Oh yeah, got a lot of rain, but that didn't bother me today. Usually I get really happy when it rains because I have flowers out there, but flowers are all done for the season, so it's going to be a while before I really want more rain. So it can rain as much or as little as it likes right now.
Oh, nice. Hey, I was reading yesterday's Camelot Journal entry, and I noticed you said something about doing some recordings of guided meditations. Can you share a little bit about that?
Our webmaster, Daniel Shields from Cape Town, South Africa, has created some guided meditations that are very, very beautiful. He's writing more and more, but right now there are two that are ready to be recorded, but we don't have quite all the equipment yet. The computer came in, but there's some other, I guess it's the cable that connects the little computer that will record with the big computer that I'll be reading from. So Austin will be back over on Monday, and I can probably get started then.
Oh, beautiful. Wow. Yeah, looking forward to that. So I assume you will let us know when they are there and available.
Yeah, it should be pretty soon, but they're really beautiful. He's written a number of them, and he's got a talent for it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we're definitely looking forward to it. I did have a question that I wanted to ask you for starters. And again, for those who are on the Zoom call, if you have a question that you want to ask Jim, I would encourage you to go ahead, type your question in the chat window, and I'll make a list of the folks who have questions in order, and that's the order that we'll be taking questions. Otherwise, for starters, Jim, there was something that I wanted to ask you about the matrix of the spirit. We actually discussed this a few months ago, I think back in October, and this was something I had wanted to ask about at that time, but didn't quite get a chance, and definitely wanted to ask about it today. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do a screen share just so we can put this up on the screen and have a visual of it. So this is from session 80, question 8. And here Ra says, you may with some fruitfulness consider the possibilities of moonlight. You are aware that we have described the matrix of the spirit as a night. The moonlight then offers either a true picture seen in shadow or chimera and falsity. The power of falsity is deep, as is the power to discern truth from shadow. The shadow of hidden things is an infinite depth in which is stored the power of the one infinite creator. The adept then is working with the power of hidden things illuminated by that which can be false or true. To embrace falsity, to know it, to seek it, and to use it gives a power that is most great. This is the nature of the power of your visitor, and may shed some light upon the power of one who seeks in order to serve others as well. For the missteps in the night are oh so easy. Fascinating passage that I have been ruminating on for a while. Chimera, in case anybody was wondering, is a mythological creature that had a lion's heart, a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail, and generally refers to something that is an illusion or a construction of the mind. And the power of the visitor referred to, I assume, was that fifth density negative entity that was often close by with Carla setting psychic greetings. Otherwise, I was just wondering, Jim, do you have any thoughts on how to discern truth from falsity as reflected on in this passage?
I think what Ra's talking about is that power of our negative friend is the power of that which is not. It is the negative path, but that path is just as powerful as the positive path because the Creator blinks neither at the light nor the darkness. So our negative friend had the ability to utilize this power to offer psychic greetings or psychic attacks on anybody in our group that would move away from the light. If we made a free will choice to move away from the light by disharmony or miscommunication or lack of love, then our friend could intensify it because we'd made a free will choice. And that was the way psychic greetings were offered. So it's just talking about the nature of the creation, having both positive and negative up to the point. And that point is within the sixth density when the negative path can't go any further, because at that point you have to be able to see everyone as the creator, not just yourself and the negative entities. So then the negative has to switch its path to positive. And by the time you get to the mid sixth density, the concept of polarity is dropped altogether. It's been a tool to get to that point of the creator knowing itself within each entity.
So, yeah, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, and I appreciate the clarification. There's so much in that passage and so many different layers to it. It ties into that whole idea of groping in the moonlight and how so much of what we experience in third density, adept or not, is often really hard to tell.
Yeah.
And I only bring this up because it seems much of the difficulty that our society is facing these days in becoming a social memory complex, in moving the needle collectively towards service to others or service to self, involves this difficulty in discerning truth from falsity, or what we might think of as fact from opinion. Today, of course, is the 3-year anniversary of the
Yeah.
January 6th attack on our Capitol building. And I think it's fair to say that many in our country and in the Law of One community have wildly different perceptions and different opinions about what happened that day. Many, if not most people, I would think, saw this as an attack by supporters of former President Donald Trump in an effort to overturn legitimate election results. But many others deny the legitimacy of those elections and believe that it was stolen from Mr. Trump. Fox News Republicans in Congress have denied that it was a violent attack and described what we saw on camera as peaceful protesters and sightseers in the Capitol. Others deny that the attackers were supporters of Trump and said they were Antifa or government actors or whatever. May I ask, on this day, how do you see the events that happened that day and how they are likely to shape the events of the coming year from a Law of One perspective?
Well, I think that the veil of forgetting provides us all a means by which to perceive in a personal way what happens in the world around us. And the way that we choose to perceive that is the way that we choose to polarize in our consciousness. And I think that everything that happened was the creator knowing itself, and that there are so many things in the world today, various wars around the world, that the creator has a chance to know itself. But a lot of these are very traumatic and difficult in the third density. And most of our progress forward in the third density comes from the trauma of change, becoming more than we were before, accepting more as the creator, and being able to work with it so that we don't feel so thrown off our balance when we see things like this happening. We realize that everybody's going to have their own particular interpretation of what went on. And my interpretation is that these were probably people that were, whether they were controlled by Donald Trump or not, they were attempting to be sure that their guy got in power. And they went about it in a way that was very difficult. I believe 5 people died. And I think that that is something that happens in the world so frequently. There are mass shootings around this country almost on a daily basis. And people have reasons for doing that that don't make sense to anybody else, but in their own minds, it's got something to do with what should happen. So I think we're all subject to seeing this illusion in a unique way. And basically, there are, two basic ways of looking at it, positive and negatively. And I don't think we can prove anything because this isn't the density of understanding. We just can witness and we can feel in our own hearts what we think is the best thing to do and move forward with that as our own spiritual path, and yet see everybody else as the creator in their own particular way. This is an illusion. The things that happen here can be tremendously traumatic, but they are an illusion. They are all the creator getting to know itself. And people can do it positively or negatively. It's the way it is.
Yeah, thank you. That all makes perfect sense to me. Curtis, did you have a clarification question or follow-up question?
Yes. I guess this will eliminate my question also, because it actually arrived from that same little card you had up, and what Jim said, the light doesn't shine on the right or the left. It's there for anybody, or for the service to anybody, or anything. And my question was about judgment. I feel that if we judge anything, we're basically polarizing service to self, because that is our opinion. And then what we try to do is find groups or people who agree with our opinion, and our opinion's right. And then we look at others who have a different opinion as wrong, or people might call somebody with the other opinion evil, and so on. But if it's all illusion and the creator is experiencing self and all is how it shall be and all is right. From what I remember, and I actually told my wife, before the veil, everything was in monochrome. And after the veil, the colors became so vivid. The experience the creator got was so much more, because we had free will now to make choices. And what you guys just said basically answers my question. I feel like we're just supposed to observe, and we already made our choice to polarize which way and figure out how to deal with it with love and understanding, because that's one of the most important things.
Agreed.
Each moment creates love.
For sure. Yeah, no, that all makes perfect sense to me. I think a lot of people can disagree on what's true or what's false. I think the only reason that I get a little bit hung up on this, and I do want to say that I agree 100% about when we become judgmental, and I'm often guilty of that. That is polarizing towards service to self. Anytime we are judgmental, we are depolarizing ourselves from service to others, for sure. I think I would only push back on that. We can disagree on what's true and what's false, but I think what's fact and what's opinion, I think maybe that's a different story, and that's a little step down. But I mean, we can look up in the sky at 12 noon, and we can have differences of opinion on whether that's the sun or the moon. But I would think it's kind of a fact that it's the sun in the sky, not the moon. And if somebody has a different opinion about that, they're entitled to that opinion. But I would think there's a difference between fact and opinion in that case.
I think there's one other thing that we need to consider, and that is in the balancing process. Ross said that we need to look at the things that happen to us in our daily round of activities, which could include how we see what happened on January 6th, 3 years ago, or anything in the world around us as being part of us. We are the creator. The creator is everything. And when we see something that doesn't set well with us, then we need to balance it out to see that that is part of us and the opposite is part of us, so that we all can become 360-degree beings. We can become the creator. So that's part of the balancing process, is to use this that you don't feel resonance with, and to use it as food for growth, because it could provide that, and anything can provide that food for growth.
Awesome. Thank you.
In your description of the sun and the moon, Jonathan, are we supposed to correct that person? Said, no, that is not the moon. It is the sun. You don't know what you're talking about, or whatever. And I know I'm right. Is that the way to do it? It's in service to others. How are we supposed to react in a situation like that?
It's a great question. And I agree with what Jim has said and what I think you are saying, which is whatever you say it in a loving manner and not a judgmental manner, and not in a way that is compelling the other person to agree with you. I think in the case of what happened on January 6th, again, I mean, we could be looking at the same film footage and some people would say, I see a bunch of Trump supporters storming the we can agree or disagree on whether what happened that day was acts of violence, but I would think anybody who was watching those videos would agree those were some acts of violence that happened that day. So it can be said without judging a person who disagrees as being a bad person or evil person. And I'm not judging any of those people who participated as being evil. I'm sure they're very good people. And as Jim is saying, they are other selves. And I love them and respect them as other selves and other aspects of the creator. And I believe they were doing what they believed was the right thing. And I do believe that it all fits together and is meant to be. But it doesn't mean I have to agree with what they are saying or doing.
I'd rather stick with the sun and the moon, because we go to January 6th.
Sounds good.
Some station shows an act of violence. Another station would show people walking with American flags and being patriots, and the doors opening for them and people waving them in. So it's all opinion and all being, propaganda from each of those things. And we have to look at, I heard this, one of our things, heart of ourselves. That took me a long time to understand when Morris mentioned that. You have to look for your heart of self. And I was like, what? And I had to sit there. What do you see? It only matters what you observe and what you think, not what anybody else thinks.
Fair enough. Mimi has a question, and then I would love to go ahead to the questions in the chat window. I see quite a few in there. Mimi, did you have a question?
Yeah, I met a lovely woman from Ohio yesterday who's been doing Christian outreach ministry, very much of service. And she prayed to understand, from Ohio, there was such a difference of opinion, right and left. And she really came to a place of peace, like we're all one, basically. She just got it, that not to polarize on it. And it was very heartening. We ended up exchanging numbers. I'm sure we'll be friends. She was lovely. But my question that I just reposted at the end was kind of a follow-on to this. So I'll bring it up, and if you don't think it's relevant enough, fine if we pass. But it was about, how do you pierce the veil of illusion and what makes it persist?
Well, I think you become a spiritual seeker and you try to figure out, what it is in your life, according to books you've read, experiences you've had, people you've talked to, and you try to make sense of life because we don't know what's going on for sure. And all we have to go on is various religions or metaphysical practices or internal experiences that we've had, and we build on those and we keep searching. We're searching in the dark, just like that matrix of the spirit was, and we're trying to make sense of it all. And we do the best we can throughout our life path. We join together with others of like mind and get together in groups and support each other and learn from each other. And we do the best we can. And eventually, I think we have a feeling within us, because that creator is within us. And when we have a resonant feeling that we're on the right path for us, then we keep going on that path and building on it. And I think that's the best that I could say. Each person has a unique interpretation or perception of spirituality, of the creator, and how we all fit together. It's a puzzle that everybody's trying to put together.
How about the persistence, though? I was really wondering about the spiritual mechanics of that. Did you ever get information on that?
Well, persistence, yeah, as a matter
Like
of
the
fact.
persistence of the ego in the face of like, well, we're all one. Why do we still believe in separate selves? You know, I've always wondered
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think the persistence helps anybody to continue on whatever path they're on. Persistence or perseverance, or as Carla would say, perseverance.
No, Jen, that wasn't what I meant. Sorry.
Okay,
to
try
interrupt
again.
you. No, why does the illusion persist?
Oh, well, because that's the way we learned the best. When there was no illusion and there was no veil of forgetting, that's when everyone knew they were the creator. And there was no reason.
Again, I have to interrupt you. That was my question.
I'm sorry, I missed
sorry,
it.
self-respect him. I'm trying to understand, like, is there a mechanism, like a spiritual construct, like energetically? Like, what is this thing, this veil of illusion? Do you understand my question? I'm just
Probably not, but I'll try again.
Okay,
You know,
thank you so
third
much.
time's a charm.
Okay, fine.
The veil of illusion seems to be a separation between the conscious and subconscious mind,
Got it.
so that you can't see what's in the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is connected to the planetary mind, the racial mind, the archetypical mind, and the cosmic mind, the mind of the creator. And when you have that veil between the conscious and subconscious, you don't have access to that. And you have to go around trying to figure out what it is you want to do and what a spiritual journey is.
How does that tie into the archetypes?
Well, the archetypical mind was created by the original primal logos as a means of describing the nature of creation, the nature of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And there's 7 facets of each of those that we can use as a conscious tool to accelerate our evolution. We don't have to, that's an advanced tool. But in our own daily round of activities, we are accentuating and expressing various of those archetypes, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And that's the way we travel our spiritual path.
Well, maybe at another time. I just love to hear more about how to use those consciously, because it's always confused. I think a lot of us. Thank
the
you.
archetypical mind, yeah, well, that is very confusing. It's the most advanced material we got to the raw contact.
Yes.
And I've studied it for quite a while, and I'm still confused about a lot of things.
Yeah.
We didn't get, we got a lot of information on the mind, a complete answering of all our questions, but only general information about the body and spirit. So you have to figure that out for yourself. And that's not easy.
Okay. Well, wonderful, wonderful subject if you dare go there for a future session. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your questions and your patience.
Thank you, Mimi. Hey, I see Harrison has a follow-up question, and I see Heather has a follow-up question. Harrison and Heather, these are follow-up questions on this topic, right? Harrison, would you like to go first?
Sure. Good morning. In regards to the veil, this is the way how I see it, or I just wanted to comment on that. I see it like Jim said, like it's an illusion. And at the same time, science is also telling us it's an illusion. So we're also getting information these days from both sides. We're getting spiritual information that says it's an illusion. We're getting science information that it's an illusion. And as for the veil, this is the way I see it. I see it like a video game. Like gamers have been existing for decades now. And it's like, if you're a part of the creator and you're branched off and you said, I want to advance my soul's education. So how do I do that best? Well, if you're sent to 3rd density, you're going to get the most advancement in the shortest amount of time. So we're in like the extreme zone for soul advancement, right? So we have a veil, and the purpose of the veil is to provide that game room for us to live out our lives. And we have polarized in certain ways throughout our path to define our character, our ego, our spiritual path, how we're going to create that soul education space, right? The veil won't go away until everybody universally acknowledges that we're one. So, which would be a return back to the unity of the creator, right? So where we're no longer perceiving ourselves as individuals and separated from each other, we're perceiving ourselves as one.
Harrison, are you asking a question?
No, like I just wanted to comment on the aspect of the veil.
Okay.
So if you don't want me to carry on commenting, I'll stop, right?
Okay.
But
I saw you had a question later on.
I do have a question later on, and I just wanted to comment on aspects of the veil.
Okay.
And so
I appreciate it. I just need to mind our time. We generally
sure.
sessions to
So
an
that,
hour.
I'll keep it short.
Questions. So.
Right. I'll keep it short, and I'll just say that's the way I perceive it. And the objective, like Carla says in her book, Living the Law of One, it's just like, if we stick to spiritual principles, if we understand our polarity and we stick to spiritual principles and we work within the veil, and we say, like, for example, the golden rule. So she outlines many different golden rule interpretations from various religions throughout the world. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If we stick to principles like that, that's the way we see the creator and others. But the veil will always exist.
Very much. Heather, did you have a question you wanted to ask? Follow-up question?
Yeah, I'll just keep it brief. Is the veil and the law of confusion the same thing?
Well, I would say they interact, and there is a law of confusion that is enhanced by the veil. But once the veil is lifted and we move into the higher densities, there is still not total clear perception of the nature of reality, as we have to keep moving higher and higher until the seventh density, the density of foreverness, when we perceive it all as being ourselves. We can have the theory that it's all one, but that theory has to be realized in our spiritual journey and reflected as we become more and more the creator, more as each density gives us greater powers of perception and manifestation. There then are abilities that could be seen as supernatural, that are natural to the higher densities, and they keep expanding until the seventh density. In the eighth, we all become one, all coalesces into unity once again.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to the first question in the chat window, and that is from Sammy, and then we have Harrison and Heather after that, if you still have questions. Sammy, do you want to go first with your question?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that's a little bit different subject. I am at the moment living in a hot country, hot environment, and we have here many small second density friends who want to enter my home, like cockroaches and ants and everything. And in many cases, I would not like them to enter. And I think environment is a little bit out of balance where I live. But what would be the recommended way to live with those animals, or treat them, or how to get rid of them if I don't want them to enter? Are there any mentions in any materials about of that?
I don't know if there's any one general answer that could, take care of your concerns, because a lot of times it just depends upon what kind of creature you're dealing with and what difficulty they provide. I mean, I have cats, and in the past, I've had a number of cats, and the person that had them, I moved her here with her cats so we could find a solution to her cancer, and her cats had fleas. And so in order to keep those fleas from harming the cats, we needed to use a flea repellent. But when I see a creature in the house, when I see flies in the house or ants or whatever, I try to capture them and take them outside. Now, if you've got a lot of them around and that isn't feasible and they're causing problems, I think then you have to maybe go for another solution. There's some sort of a balance that you have to use, and I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know what you're dealing with, but those, they're all the creator, and they eat each other when they're outside, depending on what kind of creature you've got. And so I couldn't give you a general rule. I think you just have to meditate on it and think about it in your heart.
Yeah, thank you.
What would be the
This
best
is a
thing to do?
challenge. Yeah, thank you for the answer.
Any follow-up questions on that, Sammy? Are you good on that?
No, I don't have. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe, Harrison, you had a question on a different subject you wanted to ask?
Yeah, sorry. It's in the chat. It was just regarding the authentic self. So these days, culturally, especially in spiritual, new age, modern traditions, people are encouraged to be their authentic self. Be your authentic self. And I think so. My question is from the law of one perspective, as Ra or Quo might interpret it. What does that mean to you, Jim? And can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think it means sharing what I really feel or think about any situation, with the disclaimer that I might be wrong. So my authentic self is the best I can do to this point in my spiritual evolution. And I think it's constantly changing according to the experiences in the world around me. It might be I'll have a conversation with somebody that will say, well, no, I don't agree with what you said there. So let's talk about that. And it might be that they come up with a better aspect of expressing what I was expressing in one way that I can learn from. Or it might be just as I grow older and have more experiences, things just naturally change. There are some things I think that don't change. And that is when you make the basic decision that you want to be of service to others. And you want to pursue that path as fully and as completely and as purely as possible. But again, you don't know exactly how to do that every time. So it's a process of change that's built upon the foundation stone of the choice of service to others.
Any follow-up questions on that, Harrison?
Yeah, so do you think it's that not everybody lives within us? I mean, we have polarity in our past. Some are service to self, some are service to other self. Do you think that element of living your authentic self also includes self-improvement?
Well, I think that's another way of saying traveling along your spiritual path. Self-improvement, it's always something that you're looking for. I mean, it's an endless journey. It's not a one and done thing. We have to keep traveling. We travel through all the higher densities too. We set the foundation for it here with our choice of service to others or service to self.
Thank you for that. Appreciate your answer.
But thank you for your question.
Thank you. Heather, did you have a new question?
Yeah, so my question was, I believe I saw on the LNL research site, Jim, that you were originally born in Kearney, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my father is from that region as well, and he is 75. And I was just curious how you got from there to start researching like UFOs. Did you have any unusual experiences in Nebraska when you were young that maybe guided you towards that?
Well, I went to college in Kearney, Nebraska, when then it was Kearney State College. Now it's the University of Nebraska at Kearney. And I was there during the hippie revolution. And after I graduated in business administration and economics as my majors, I thought, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life making money. That just doesn't get it. So I joined what was called at that time Teacher Corps. And Teacher Corps was a program at the University of Florida that was sponsored by the Health, Education, and Welfare and the University of Florida. And what we ended up doing was working at the inner city of Jacksonville, Florida, to try to help the low income people there have an equal education. And that was something that it was a 2-year program. And we got a master's degree out of it. We got paid. And being hippies, we got to complain. and protest what was going on. So we got our own classrooms, and we got the students that were considered incorrigible by the other teachers. And so that was a process of learning how to give individualized education to students that didn't respond well to the general type of way of turning, learning and expressing what they knew. So we used books like Jonathan Cole's Classroom and did the best we could. And I think we made some progress, but I discovered the kids had more energy than I did, and I didn't want to continue on that path either. So part of what happened there was I found a book that was how to write a book and start your own school, the Raspberry Exercises. And in the back of the book, I found a bibliography. They talked about this fellow, T.D. Lingo, at the Adventure Trail Survival School in Black Hawk, Colorado. So this became my next step in my journey. All of these were steps in the journey. They all look like failures to start with. But as I went to the survival school, the way that worked was it was called a brain self-control, how to do self-therapy in nature, how to use dreams to discover how you had been programmed in a way that was not the best for your own spiritual journey. That he felt that the old root stem behind the brain there had these programmings that could inhibit your ability to go forward in what we would call a spiritual path. So because it was the brain, he felt it was the brain's natural ability and function to circuit your consciousness into your frontal lobes, into the pineal gland, so that you would have what you would call an enlightenment experience. So after we worked with dreams and we found out there's usually just 2 or 3 different blockages to this type of energy. He called it a synaptic opening, that the energy was being drained away by an opening. So once that you found those things out for the dreams and you essayed about them, then there was a neurodrama where you found somebody else to play the role of the person, where it was a parent, a teacher, a friend, somewhere about the age of 7 or before, that programmed you in what was called an anti-life way. And once you did that, then you acted out your part. When you were a child, you didn't know you had the right to stand up for yourself. So when you had this neurodrama, you stood up for yourself. You cried, you shouted, you screamed, you said no. And that seemed to close the gap that was draining away the energy, so that at some point you would have this frontal lobes experience, which I had on July 12th, 1972. And my frontal lobes came alive, and they began circulating like a cyclotron. And from that point on, every orgasm I ever had was also in my frontal lobes. So that he said, each one teach one. So from that point, my next step was to move to the hills, or the knobs that they call here in Kentucky, and live in the woods, build my own log cabin, and have my own classes. So I offered 2 classes, and people did well, but they didn't have frontal lobes experiences. But at one point on it was May 17th, 1979, I had a battery-powered radio. I was listening to a station in Lexington, Kentucky, WKQQ. They were interviewing Don Elkins and Carla Ruckert about the concept of UFOs, and not what the UFOs look like, but the people in them, the philosophy of the one original thought of love. And so eventually, 6 months later, I had the chance to meet them, and I joined them, and 3 weeks later, the raw contact started. So all my seeming failure steps along the way were steps to help me get to Don and Carla and the Law of One. And it started in Kearney, Nebraska.
Awesome. Thank you.
Beautiful story. Follow-ups on that, Heather?
No follow-up. That was great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Andy, do you have a follow-up question, clarification? Andy, I thought I saw your hand up.
Sorry, yeah. No, it's not a follow-up. Can I ask a new question? Or is that I don't want to...
I'm going in the order in the chat window, if you wouldn't mind.
Let's see. Okay, no, I dropped it. No, that's fine. It's not important. I'll ask next time. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Curtis?
From what I heard, it seems like you chose service to others, polarization, long time ago, and then Because when you chose that path, it just started steamrolling, snowballing, you know, and it ended up with Ra.
That's basically it. Although I didn't know it at the time. I just thought, you know, no, not that, not that, not that.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your sharing, Jim, how all of these things started with what appeared to be failures. I think that's a really great lesson for all of us to remember as we're experiencing our own things that appear to be failures.
But Ross said there are no mistakes. I didn't know that at
Always
the time.
mistakes, not failures. There may or may not be a difference. Hey, I see Aram has a question. Aram, would you like to unmute your mic and ask? Are you there?
Sorry.
Aram?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry. Let me get myself situated. Hi, Jim. It's good to see you. Just a comment. It sounded like the neurodrama that you were describing sounds like what some people practice in therapy called like family constellations, where you kind of relive the traumatic experience and other people stand in for your family members.
Right.
I just wanted to make that comment. But my question is about pre-incarnatively chosen relationships. So I'm guessing, you know, before you incarnate, your soul has chosen to meet certain individuals in this lifetime. And I'm wondering, is your free will able to kind of avoid those relationships if you choose in this incarnation, or if it's pre-incarnatively chosen, is that kind of just a guarantee that you will meet?
I don't think there are any guarantees. There are paths to travel that are very likely, because I think that according to what Roz said, the pre-incarnative choices are within the subconscious mind, and that the subconscious mind, the high priestess, which is the subconscious mind, biases the way you see certain events in your life, so that becomes the path you travel. So I think that is very likely to happen, but you still have free will for the entire time of your incarnation. And it may be that at some point, for some reason, that you don't go that path. But I think that our guides also, where it's the higher self, or the positive, the male, the female, the androgynous guide, could help you to see again the pre-incarnated choice. But like I said, you always have free will.
Okay.
I think if you go with what you feel and what your intuition tells you, I think you're traveling that path that you chose pre-incarnatively.
Okay. The reason why I ask is because I recognize now that, you know, my son and I had a pre-incarnative you know, contract, I guess, you know, for me to be his mom. But at the time, you know, previous to, you know, to like turning a certain age, I didn't want to be a mom. And then all of a sudden there was this like uncontrollable desire to be a mother, you know, and it was like, I felt like I didn't know where it came from. And also like this magnetic pull to, you know, the person who eventually was his dad. And in hindsight, I realized like, oh, that must have been a pre-incarnative choice. And, you know, I realize there are other people in my life that I feel that pull towards. And I'm guessing it's from those pre-incarnative choices and my subconscious telling me that's the direction I should go in.
I think that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's possible to happen for everybody.
All right.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think most people are aware of it in some degree.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great question, Ram. Thank you. Bill, did you have a question you wanted to ask? And then Kim Poi after that.
Yeah, I got a question. It says that the feeling that the guys in the upper densities get is one of like a constant sexual orgasm. Okay, and I was wondering, and that's from the service to other side. I was wondering, do the service to self beings in the higher density have the same feeling? that those on the service to others pass. Have you run across that? You know, because Kua would know because it got people in Ra, and I think Ra has absorbed some service to self entities and their social memory complexes. They got into the sixth density. So I was wondering if they have that same feeling.
I don't know. We haven't gotten information about that in any of our channelings, but I would think that there would be some similarity for the negative path, because basically I think that constant feeling of orgasm is a feeling that gets greater and greater as you go further into the higher densities, because you're becoming more and more one the creator, and that is an orgasmic feeling, I think, in the higher densities.
Any follow-ups, Bill?
I hope you asked Kua that question.
I'll try to remember to do that.
Who among us would not want to experience a constant state of orgasm, really? Great question, thank you. Kim Pui, did you have a question you wanted to ask? You'll have to make sure you unmute your mic.
Hi. Hello. Hi. My question is, I heard that there are 7 subdensities in every density. Is that correct or no?
Yes, and
And
apparently there are 7 subdensities infinitely.
oh, infinitely. So I was just thinking if like based on your own from what you're seeing now with like it's 2024, it's a new year, and where do you think our current subdensity is, or is it near the fourth or still far from it?
Well, I think that subdensities are a concept that is in effect whether we're close or far from the fourth density. The subdensities give us all a chance to create our own realities. And I think this, again, is where we have differing opinions upon how we see the world around us. With an infinite number of subdensities, Don discovered that any thought that you have can become a reality in another subdensity. But as far as fourth density, I think that the planet itself has, since the raw contact, been itself in the fourth density. And there are many people here that have their own fourth density consciousness, that once that they drop their bodies and walk into the light, they'll be able to welcome and enjoy the fourth density vibrations. But most of the people are in the lower level of the orange ray or the green or the yellow ray, so that they still have what you might call working consciousness to do in being able to love and accept others more than 51% of the time with unconditional love.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for your question.
Thank you indeed. Our next question was from Tonya, but Tonya says she has a flu and is not really able to speak that well on camera. So she asked if I could read the question out. So Jim, Tonya's question is, now that we know there's a veil, does that hamper our learning progress? Or is it understanding that there is a veil and working in the realm of knowing that helps us learn? Like, is using magic or something like that pierces the veil? Is that a shortcut that hinders our learning, or is that helping us learn more deeply?
Well, I don't think our journey is really consciously trying to penetrate the veil. I think it's trying to open our hearts in unconditional love. And by doing that, then we perceive the world around us differently. And by perceiving it as a unified nature of the Creator, and that we love the Creator as we love ourselves, because everyone's the Creator, that is a process that begins to penetrate the veil as we see that as more and more of our own personal reality, the way we see things.
That's good. Tonya, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to put them in the chat window. Otherwise, I think I see one more question in the chat window, and that's from Piyush. Piyush, would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
John, my mom is sleeping, so I won't be able to speak. She'll get disturbed.
I'm sorry, I think I missed that. Could you say that again?
I was saying that my mother, she is sleeping, so if I'll speak, so she'll get disturbed. So if you can read from the chat window, then it will be amazing.
I think he wants you to read for him, John.
Oh,
I think he's saying his mom's asleep in the room, and he's just hoping you can read the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I have to look for it. Sorry, thank you. Question is, if we have free will, then why do we have limitations? If I want to choose my own body, how it should be, my height, eyes, nose, etc., I think we don't plan it, it just happens. Does free will only exist in controlling my thoughts, feelings, which hypothetically doesn't exist for the society? Are you getting the question, Jim? Do you understand? Would you like me to reread it?
Well, I think I got it. I think we always have free will, but the free will we exercise before the incarnation is a free will that has a lot more information in it so that we can choose bodies and friends and lessons. And then once we get into the incarnation, we have the free will to try to perceive these once we become a spiritual seeker of truth, a conscious spiritual seeker of truth. Most people that have not made it to being conscious of a spiritual path may be able to perceive some of these lessons intuitively or by happenstance, but it's not as effective as when you become a conscious seeker of truth. However, your free will within the incarnation is limited by the veil of forgetting and limited by not being able to correctly perceive perhaps the free will choices made before the incarnation. So free will is always active, but it has more information to go on before the incarnation than afterwards.
Thank you. Piyush, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to type them in the chat window. I am looking there. And I did see Curtis had another question. Curtis, did you want to ask? Or do you want me to read your question? Are you there, Curtis?
Sorry. I was being bothered, interrupted. But what is what is the definition of an octave?
8. Do re mi fa sol la ti do.
Yeah, but it's like the Council of Nine is in an octave, and the word octave is used a lot. But I'm trying to understand really, and it's infinite octaves. Ross said, I'm trying to understand what is that really.
Well, the octave of creation is the densities of experience that we all go through. We're in the 3rd density now, trying to make 4th density harvest. And once we go through all of the octaves up to the 7th density of foreverness, then the octave, the 8th density, is the completion, where all of the creation coalesces into the one infinite creator. All the experience that all of us have ever had then becomes this great library of experience the creator has gotten to know itself. And then once that happens, then the whole process starts again. Starts over within the 1st density, where you have earth, wind, fire, and water blowing incandescently for an unknown amount of time. And then once that time begins to unroll its scroll, then the 1st density is 2 billion years long, the 2nd density 4.6. Then we get down to the 3rd of 75,000 years. So the octave is something that's been going on forever, and it's apparently going to go on forever.
And that applies to the inner planes as well as the outer, does it not?
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Each density has the inner and outer planes. There's incarnations in each density.
Just goes on. Just seems to go on forever and ever, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Harrison, did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah. Hi, Jim. Have you ever heard of a Yuga, like a Kali Yuga? I've read this book called The Holy Science by Sri Yukswar, who was the guru to Paramahansa Yogananda, and he talks about the yugas in yogic tradition being thousands of years. They go through cycles, and a Kali Yuga is about 75,000 years. So you were saying that an octave in third density is a 75,000 year cycle? Is that what you were saying?
Right. That's the master cycle.
Master cycle. Okay. Yeah. I recommend reading that book if you've never read it, The Holy Science by Sri Yukswar. It's really, really fascinating. Really fascinating.
I'm sure it is. I've heard of the concept, and I've really appreciated the autobiography of a yogi. And in there, he mentions Yukswar, but I don't know much about him. But I'll take your advice.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. I believe that was the last question in the chat window. So I did want to thank everyone for bringing their questions today. It has been a delightful time, and I'm happy to say, Jim, that we have just enough time, I think, to do a little pop quiz for you.
Oh, a quiz. I think I did pretty well last time. Better than the first time.
You don't think we were going to let you get away without doing a pop quiz, did you? Indeed. Yes. Again, pop quiz was a term that Carla used frequently to refer to the unexpected catalyst that we often get in life to see how well we're understanding the things that we came here to learn. So, Jim, once again, we are going to test your knowledge of pop culture just to add a little bit of fun and levity and laughter to our otherwise serious discussions about the life, about the law of one. So if you are ready, folks on Zoom, you can put answers in the chat window if you want. And folks watching on YouTube, if you are still with us, you can go ahead and say your answers out loud. And not that we're keeping score or anything, Jim, but if we were, I believe so far you're going 3 for 6, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good batting average in baseball.
I was going to say, if that was a batting average, you would be all-star. Yeah, for sure. So clearly, Jim, you know a lot about the one original thought that is referenced countless times in channeling sessions, but how much do you know about the many unoriginal thoughts referenced in countless copyright infringement lawsuits? Today, we're going to ask you 3 multiple choice questions about famous copyright infringement cases involving famous pop songs and artists, some of which I believe will be familiar to you. See how many you can guess correctly. Are you ready for your first question?
I'm ready.
All right.
I think.
George Harrison's 1970 hit song, My Sweet Lord, sounded strikingly similar to the Chiffons' 1962 hit song, He's So Fine. Bright Tunes Music, which owned the rights to He's So Fine, sued Harrison for plagiarism in 1971. What was the outcome of the case? Was it A, Harrison lost the case and had to pay $1,600,000? Or B, Bright Tunes Music lost the case and had to pay $1,600,000. Or C, Harrison bought Bright Tunes Music and the rights to He's So Fine.
I'll say A. Lost the case and had to pay $1.6 million.
That is a good guess. And the correct answer is, in fact, A and C. I never said there was only one correct answer on this.
But we assumed it.
Yes, and you know.
Do I get half a point?
You do. You most definitely get half a point.
Okay.
In 1981, the court ruled that George Harrison had access to the Chiffon song due to its popularity, and that while he may not have intentionally used it to create his version, he was guilty of what they called subconscious plagiarism and was ordered to pay $1,600,000. But this amount was lowered to $587,000 after Harrison's then manager, Alan Klein, purchased Bright Tunes Music and negotiated the sale of the song to Harrison. Did you listen to George Harrison solo stuff much? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I love George Harrison music.
Was he your favorite Beatle?
I can't say. He was right up there. I mean, yeah, with John and Paul.
He was definitely the most spiritual of them. And I remember when that song came out, My Sweet Lord, in 1970. Man, it was playing all over the radio, and that was a very bold move, I think, to make that his first hit single.
We've used that for a tuning song here in our Quo channelings.
You have used it as a tuning song, or you could?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Yeah. Are you ready for your second question?
I'm ready.
So lawyers claimed copyright infringement when rapper Vanilla Ice used a bass line for his hit song Ice Ice Baby in 1990 that sounded strikingly similar to the bass line from Under Pressure, a hit song by Queen and David Bowie from 1981. What was the outcome of this case? Are you familiar with these songs or with that bass line?
Not this song.
It is one of the catchiest bass lines in the history of pop music, and I'm guessing most people watching this or hearing this are familiar with it. It goes doom 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 ching doom 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 ching ching on the piano. Super catchy. Anyway, Ice Ice Baby was a song that used that bass line in 1990. So what was the outcome of this case? Was it A, Queen and David Bowie lost the case and had to pay $4 million, or B, Vanilla Ice lost the case and had to pay $4 million, or C, Vanilla Ice settled out of court for an undisclosed amount?
I'll go with C.
You are correct. Yes, indeed. The case was settled out of court when lawyers for Queen and David Bowie threatened to sue. Vanilla Ice, also known as Robert Van Winkle, did claim in one interview that his bass line was different because he added one extra note to the last downbeat and took out the little piano chords. He later said he was joking at the time, admitted to stealing the bass line. He ended up settling out of court for what was years later revealed to be $4 million. And songwriting credits were given to David Bowie and all fellow members of Queen. Were you a fan at all of Queen and or David Bowie?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, interesting. Have you used any of them for tuning songs?
No, I've danced to them though.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as I recall, Queen was the first rock band with an openly gay frontman, Freddie Mercury.
Yeah,
And
from Zanzibar.
As I recall, Carla had a number of gay friends who often wrote letters and correspondences, and that she was very sympathetic to them.
Sure.
Do you remember? Can you shed any light on that? I don't really know anything other than that she had some friends and exchanged correspondences.
Yeah, well, that's just all I could share. You know, I mean, I wouldn't want to share their names right now because I don't remember them. Well, I remember one. Yeah.
Did they meet through Law of One or just other? Or
I think it was through the Law of One, and I know that some came to some homecomings back. Oh gosh, probably just after 2000.
Oh, interesting. Nice. Yeah, things have changed so much since then, and I think it continues to be something that we, as a social memory complex in the making, are grappling with. I think. Are you ready for your last question?
I'm ready.
All right. In one of the strangest copyright cases ever litigated, Fantasy Records sued John Fogerty in 1988 for plagiarizing himself with a song he wrote as a solo artist, The Old Down the Road, that sounded strikingly similar to one he wrote decades earlier, Run Through the Jungle, when he was with Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Can you plagiarize yourself?
That's what he was sued for. Yes, indeed.
Okay.
You are familiar with Creedence Clearwater Revival?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, indeed. So what was the outcome of this case? Was it that A, Fogerty lost the case and had to pay $1 million? B, Fantasy Records lost the case and had to pay $1 million? Or C, Fogerty settled out of court for an undisclosed amount?
C.
Good guess. But the correct answer is none of the above. I never said that wasn't an option.
What?
This game is rigged. This game is designed for you.
There was no way I could get that right.
Well, only if you question your own assumptions. Indeed.
I'll be on guard next time for this quiz stuff.
We learn. We adapt.
I think it's A, B, and C.
Yeah, well, the court did side with Fogerty, saying that, indeed, you cannot plagiarize yourself. But even though he won the case, Fogerty didn't get any money from Fantasy Records, and now he had to pay $1 million in legal.
Shouldn't he have to pay it to himself?
Yeah.
I guess
Well,
not.
he countersued because he wanted to get his money back. But according to the Copyright Act of 1976, only plaintiffs can make defendants pay lawyer fees, not vice versa, unless the defendant, who is in this case Fogerty, could prove that Fantasy Records' lawsuit was frivolous or in bad faith. Fogarty tried to prove this in appeal court, but he lost the case. So he took it to the Supreme Court, which did
he really?
rule in his favor.
The United States Supreme Court?
The Supreme Court ruled in his favor on the basis that it made no sense to have a double standard for plaintiffs and defendants seeking reimbursement for lawyer fees. So
okay,
won in that case. So did you have any other favorite 60s bands aside from the Beatles and maybe Creedence?
The Allman Brothers Band, Leonard Skinner. They were famous when I was down in Florida. They were from that area.
Oh,
and let's see. I guess those were my favorites then. Yeah.
The 60s were such a special time, and I ran across a passage from a channeling session that I think he might have posted on your Camlet journal not too long ago. Just wanted to share with viewers and yourself just as a last closing thing. This was actually from Latwii in 1983, January. Latwii said there have been various events which have been prominent in allowing further waves or groups of wanderers to incarnate. The second of what you call world wars was most important in this regard, for the release of that energy known as the nuclear was of such a profound nature that a great wave of wanderers incarnated at the cessation of that conflict. These wanderers then began to reach what your peoples call their maturity during the period you have referred to as the 1960s. And this flash of light, shall we say, took many forms, yet was felt around your planet. I know you've referred to so many times your association with the hippie movement and such, but yeah, did you have you thought of the hippie movement as a group of wanderers in particular?
Oh yeah, definitely. Make love, not war. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And the Beatles, famous for saying "all you need is love" and the song
Right.
Love. And it did always strike me as a really special period of spiritual awakening for our planet. That I suppose you could say now laid the groundwork for where we're at as we're laying the groundwork for generations to come.
Yeah, we all stand upon the shoulders of those that went before us.
Indeed. Jim, I want to thank you so much for playing our little game and spending some time with us today. It's been a joy as always. Did you have any closing thoughts or reflections you wanted to share before we say goodbye?
Well, this has been one of my favorite Q&A sessions with you all because the questions were so pertinent and so powerful and so personal. And it just feels like we all had a facet of a great jewel that we are creating here in our togetherness. And I think it's shining brightly in every heart. I thank you for being part of it. And I love you all.
We love you also. Love you so much, my friend. Thank you for making it possible. I did want to say before we say goodbye, we had a request from someone in our group if we wanted to, after we stop the recording for this meeting, if we want to continue meeting afterwards after Jim goes back to his gardening. On Tuesday, we had a really nice session and discussion on the nature of reality. And one person on the call was asking if we could continue that discussion. So if anyone would like to continue the second half of our usual Saturday Zoom session, feel free to stick around after we stop recording and we can do that. Otherwise, Jim, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. Thank you to all our friends at L&L Research for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. Thank you for all on the Zoom call for being here and bringing your vibrations and your love and light and service to others. And thank you to those of you still watching on YouTube. If there's anyone still watching on YouTube right now, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. And the love and light.
Love you.
Namaste.
Love you too.
Thank you, Jim.
Have a great day, everybody. Looking forward to next time.
Yes.